why should somebody bring on a chief product officer? I'll give you some signs that you need a chief product officer first, and then I will talk about the value that they actually add. Where I typically come into organizations, and it's going to be different, I believe, between growth stage organizations and larger organizations. The benefits are exactly the same, but the symptoms that you see kind of differ. In a growth stage organization, what typically happens is we hire a bunch of engineers. We get sometimes a couple product managers in there. We may have promoted somebody who's been there since the beginning into the CPO position. But what you start to see in organizations, that's a good sign that you need a chief product officer, is we're growing. And then all of a sudden we're trying to figure out what's the next area of growth. Typically when you're in a growth stage organization at that phase, you are trying to, double, triple, quadruple your revenue year over year, high growth, tons of things going into that. You hit this point where you're like, great, the first product we built, doing wonderful. But what do we do next, right? Like what comes next? And there may be a bunch of ideas and it's really hard to prioritize. There may be a lack of, confirmation that those are the right ideas to go into, or there may just be like no roadmap. I've walked into some organizations that have had 100 engineers and no product managers. And it was like, where's the roadmap? What are we supposed to be working on? How are we supposed to go after that? And it's a really good sign that you need a chief product officer. Now, at this point too, depending on how big you are, you could have a difference between a VP of product and a chief product officer. VPs of product are typically really great at doing one or two products and scaling that. They tend to be more focused on coaching your product managers. What a chief product officer will do that's different than a VP of product, I would say kind of in addition to a VP of product, is they're really, really good at tying the financial outcomes that the business will get back into the product roadmaps. So these people are fantastic at setting strategy by product strategy, right? By really helping to, one, identify what's the right business strategy we should go after, working with the C-suite to really do that. Two, they're able to tie the financial outcomes and what expectations we should be able to get out of the product roadmap back into, what the C-suite's doing and bringing along that. They're really good at interfacing with the board, interfacing with the rest of the executives to kind of bring this all together and make sure that we are really driving our growth through product and not, unrepeatable services and all these different things. So they can really tie that story back together, and they build teams underneath them that will really scale. So all of these different things really contribute to the difference, I think, between a chief product officer and a VP of product. And what it really comes down to is understanding the ROI and making sure that you get ROI from your product investments. Like that's what a chief product officer is going to bring to the table. They're going to make sure that you are building the right things that will get a return for your company. And they're making sure that you can scale appropriately with that. And that's really the difference. And in a large company, it's very similar. But it's also bringing that all back together. And where I see a lot of enterprises, for instance, struggle with this is a lot of them don't have chief product officers. They have chief information officers or chief infrastructure officers or CTOs that really rule this whole thing. And those people are making decisions that are like, how do I make sure that my security is robust? Really important decisions, right? How do I scale my technology? What a chief product officer is bringing to the table there is making sure that across this enterprise, let's say we got like 50,000 people, we've got 8 business lines, all these different things, right? They're trying to make sure that you can scale a product management organization and their decisions across that whole thing, right? And I see that missing in so many organizations. So what will happen is like, and this has happened to me multiple times, you go in, you talk to one business line, and you found out that they built exactly what they have at a different business line. So now you're duplicating things. You're not really thinking in platform approaches and repeatable scalability for what you're actually building. And that's the things that chief product officers can help bring to the table and solve. It's not just about investment decisions and technology scaling. It's also about how do we, and then this is the other piece. It's like, how do we make sure that we're scaling our infrastructure correctly, our products that help power the business? And then 2, they're taking a lens that goes, how can I win? And sometimes these are organizations that didn't start with products, software products, right? But what they're asking the questions about in these types of businesses are like, how do I innovate through software? And how do I do things for my business to provide value for my customers in ways we were never able to do before because we didn't invest in technology, because we didn't start from a software approach. With SaaS businesses, it's a lot more straightforward because it's like build software, sell software, easy, boom, right? Money. And in your banks and your insurance companies and your other bigger companies, what the CPO brings to the table is like saying, okay, cool, we sell financial products, we sell credit cards, great. What can we do with those financial products that we've never been able to do before without software? How do we make this so much more compelling, so much more interesting, so much better for our customers by the use of software and what software can actually provide for us? And that's the question that we need to ask as a chief product officer. And that's why they're incredibly valuable to those businesses as well. But we tend to look more at technology infrastructure scaling first, and then we forget about the CPO until later.